Okay. Of course, we're always live once we start talking here in the morning, so people can hear our comments. So
It may show up on your screen that it is live, but it's not yet. I'll let you know.
Can't hear them.
all right.
Huh. What's that over there saying?
And we are now
Speaker.
live.
View.
All right. Good morning. I think Representative Lyford may be having
Says
some
mute.
technical difficulties, so
She's got me muted.
we can
I'm
hear
going
him
to-
talk. There we go. Let's move over here before
Can't
we
hear a
start.
thing.
You want to send a message to her?
No.
Linda, can you make me a co-host, please?
Yes, I will do that right away. I'm trying to get Representative Lyford on.
No problem. I was just trying to mute Representative Lyford. All right, so good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, and I want to welcome everybody to our IFW committee meeting. And we do have, let's see, we have 5 public hearings scheduled for this morning. And I would just remind everybody, we are in an electronic format, and we're unmuted. Everything that you say or happens in the background can be heard, so please mute yourself while you're waiting to be recognized to speak. We do Zoom this, as well as a Zoom meeting, we do have it on YouTube, and it's recorded and is also available later. So make sure you unmute yourself when you get ready to talk and stay muted the rest of the time. And make sure your name in the corner is what you want it to be, that it's not just Jim's iPad or something down there. The hearing process we'll start with the sponsors, and the sponsor will speak first on their bill, followed by any co-sponsors and or legislators who wish to speak on the bill. Then the department will be next up, and then we'll try to go, depending on sheer numbers, we'll go for, against, and then neither for nor against. And other than the legislators and the sponsors and the department, there will be 3 minutes per testimony. And
We're going to introduce ourselves.
yeah, we're going to do that in a minute. I'm just going through everything here to make sure that everything's okay. Just remember that unfortunately Representative Landry and I are the background police, so when you do come up to speak or we see your picture on here, if there's something that we need to ask you to reposition your camera, then we may have to do that. And if you're testifying by phone, we do have 1-800 numbers, so you can do that. And that now brings me down to where we are, and that is to introduce ourselves. So with that, I will turn to Representative Mason first.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason, District 56 for the great people of Lisbon.
Representative Alley.
Yes, I'm Robert Alley from down the Jones Port Beals area, and I represent 12 communities in Washington County. And good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Representative Ordway.
Good morning. I'm Representative Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is part of the town of Standish.
Senator Black.
Good morning, Senator Black from Senate District 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec County.
Representative Hepler.
Good morning. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and part of Richmond.
Thank you. Representative Terrio.
Good morning. I'm Representative Tim Terrio, and I represent District 79, which is Albion, most of Benton, China, and Unity Plantation.
House Chair Landry.
Good morning. My name's Scott Landry. I represent the towns of Farmington, New Sharon, District 113. Welcome aboard.
We'll find out if Representative Lyford can hear us. He can, evidently. Good morning.
Morning, Senator Dill. Representative Peter Lyford, District 129, Clifton, Eddington, Holden, Northborough, and Vesey.
Thank you. Senator Curry.
Good morning, Chairman. I'm Chip Curry, and I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 communities of Waldo County.
Representative Neto.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Netto. I represent District 78, which covers Winslow and a small portion of Benton.
And the last one I have here I can see on my screen is Representative Danny Martin.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Danny Martin, representing House 150, located in northern Worcester County.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm Jim Dill. I represent Senate District number 5, which is northern Penobscot County, and I live in Old Town. And as I mentioned, we do have 5 bills to hear today. And our clerk for today is Linda LaCroix, and she's the one that tries to keep us all straight. And our analysts this morning are John Clark and Rachel Olson, to take notes and to follow up for work sessions and to help us out down those particular meetings. Also, as I said, we're going to split it up this morning. I'm going to do the first 3 public hearings, and then I'll turn it over to my House Chair, Representative Landry, to do the last 2. And if there's nothing else to come before us this morning, before we start, I don't see anybody waving madly at me. So we will go ahead and we'll open the public hearing on LD 309.
Senator?
Yes.
I've been watching the list, and I do not. Oh, he's just come on, President Jackson. Okay.
Okay.
He's just come on now.
Okay, if you want to let him in, followed by, Tim Peabody. So if President Jackson's on board. So with that, I will open the hearing, as I said, on LD 309, an act to require a non-resident to hire a licensed Maine guide to hunt big game. And to introduce the bill is President Andrew Jackson. Troy Jackson. Wrong President Jackson, sorry.
Wish I had all those 20s.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Troy Jackson. I represent the people of northern Worcester County in Senate District 1. Here today to present LD 309, an act to require a non-resident to hire a licensed Maine guide to hunt big game. First off, before I started, my testimony won't be very long. Certainly understand as a past member of this prestigious committee, I owe a tribute, which I will certainly make sure to provide whenever we have a legislature that's back in session. So the role of the Maine guide has a rich tradition going back many decades in serving native Mainers and visitors alike who are looking to explore the natural outdoor recreation we have to offer. In 1897, following law change requiring that guides be registered with the state, Cornelia Thurza Crosby, or Fly Rod, became the first registered guide in Maine history. She had a regular column published in newspapers around the country and became a role model to young women everywhere. According to the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, there are currently 6,300 Mainers registered as guides in our state. Guides are licensed in several specifications, including hunting, fishing, recreational, May guide boating, snowmobiling, and camping activities, sea kayaking, and tidewater fishing. The bill before you is based on the concept of reciprocity for hunting guides. It says that if you're a non-resident hunting in our state, you must be accompanied by a Maine guide if you're from a state or a province that requires Mainers to use guides in their state or province. The state of Maine, referred to by many as vacation land, is known throughout the country as a destination for people looking to enjoy the recreation and natural beauty we have to offer. This simple and straightforward bill recognizes skills and rich history our guides bring the unique Maine experience. It's an attempt to put our talented guides on a level playing field with guides in other states and provinces of Canada. I wanted to say, not from my written testimony, this is an issue that I've dealt with quite a bit over, well, actually a long time. I think when Representative Martin was commissioner, we actually had put a bill in during his time. I think it was back in 2007 or 2008 to do this very thing, require reciprocity. In my area, I have a lot of people that get upset by the fact that people from New Brunswick can come and hunt, but whenever we go over there, they have to hire a guide. It's certainly about making sure that guides have the same level playing field and protecting the resource. Northern Maine, I think that, there's a lot of area for guides to cover, for wardens to cover. And, there's definitely problems that arise there at times. And I just think that making sure that, we just have the same fair system. If you require us to have a guide, then we're going to require you to have a guide. And like I said, it was a law that we had in the past. I know some organizations didn't like it, but I think at the time, the 3 years that it was in effect, there was no major problems. There were some people that were upset that they couldn't come here from New Brunswick without having to hire a guide. But, I just think that's the fairness aspect of it. So with that, I'll certainly take any questions. I mean, I put the bill in because constituents of mine asked me to. I had sponsored it along with Representative Martin, John Martin, back in 2008, and believed in it and still do. But like I said, constituents asked me to put it back in because they just don't see the fairness of it. And I just would finally say, I think there's very few states that require us to have a guide for any type of hunt. The idea would be if you're from a state that requires us to use a guide for elk, then we would require that same thing. Obviously, we don't have elk, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to come for moose hunting or deer hunting or anything else. It's like total reciprocity. Whatever you require us to do, we'll require you to do. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Do you know, Senator Jackson, are there many states or that do require this type of a situation? So, if I went hunting in whatever state, I would have to have a guide to hunt there. Is that pretty much standard? Is there a lot of states, or do you know?
Well, I mean, I don't know explicitly. I would imagine the department probably will speak to that more, but from what I do know is that there's very few states that require guides for other people, residents. I think there's a couple states, like I said, that require a guide for a specific hunt. Like I said, for elk, I believe some states have required that. We don't have any elk, so that's not an issue. But there's a couple states that don't require guides explicitly, but for certain hunts they do. And I believe New Brunswick's the only one that requires guides for everything, which is fine. I mean, that's what they want to do. I just don't know why we wouldn't want to do the same.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Jackson, I guess I had forgotten. I didn't realize that that statute had been repealed. Do we know when that was repealed?
I believe it was in 2011. Pretty substantial fight back then to keep it. But it got repealed, and I can't really say to the reason other than just philosophy, in my opinion, but there was no detriment to, sporting camps, guides, or anything like that. I think there were just some people that were upset that New Brunswickers couldn't come here like they had used to hunt. Certainly I've had a number of questions from sporting camp owners and things like that about that. And I think at first blush, they think it's a total ban on people coming here without a guide, which makes them concerned. I mean, that's clearly not what this is. It's just reciprocity. I think most of them understand it at that point. I mean, we don't have a lot of people from New Brunswick that come here and actually stay and rent guide camps and things like that. They usually travel over and go back the same day. So they're not adding a lot to the economy, but certainly taking some of the resource. So, anyways, it was repealed in 2011.
Right. If I may, Mr. Chair, so this bill is specific to the Canadian provinces, is that correct?
Well, again, it would be any state or province that requires us to have a guide. Like I said, it would be, reciprocity. Only in, however you're requiring us to have a guide. Like I said, if there's a state that was to require you to have a guide for deer hunting, which I don't believe there's any, but if they did, then we would require those residents to have a guide for deer hunting. But like I said, as far as I know, there's none that do that. So any state or province, I mean, what I know at this point, maybe the department knows more, is the only entity that actually has an outright guide requirement is New Brunswick.
Thank you.
Representative Ordway.
Yeah, good morning, Senator Jackson.
Morning.
This might be a question for the department, but any idea on how many licenses we sell to New Brunswickers?
I don't. It's definitely a good question. I don't know.
Are there other questions? Representative Theriault.
Thank you. I believe that Alaska requires a guide for grizzly bears and mountain goats, which I would think would be a good idea no matter what. How would that reciprocity work? We don't have either one of those.
Yep. Thank you, Representative Theriault. I think that's an excellent point right there. And I agree with you. That's probably a great idea to have a guide for those two species. Because we don't have them, then we wouldn't require people from Alaska to have a guide for bear hunting, black bear hunting or anything like that. I mean, it's true reciprocity. Whatever you require us to do, then we'll require you to do. And since we don't have those type of hunts, then we wouldn't require them to do that on other hunts in Maine. And that's how it was. In 2008 was the same, thing. We didn't require any other states or anything like that because we didn't have that requirement put on us at that time. So, but that example is a perfect one, because they do require guides for those two species in their state. Doesn't mean that we would require them to come here and have a guide for deer hunting because it's not reciprocity.
Representative Landry. You're muted for some reason, Representative, but it doesn't show that you're muted. Yeah. Still can't hear you.
Representative, try holding down on your space bar, see if that works.
Nope. Can't hear you. I guess the only thing we can suggest is you try leaving and coming back in. Okay, are there any other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you, President Jackson. You can have all those 20s that have your picture on.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
All right. Next up, we have Tim Peabody from the department, and followed by Don Kleiner, John Simoneau, and David Trainey. So with that, Tim, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Tim Peabody, Deputy Commissioner at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, speaking on behalf of the department in opposition to LD 309. This bill prohibits a non-resident, which includes anyone from another state, province, or country, from hunting moose, deer, or bear without being accompanied by a licensed Maine guide if the non-resident is from a state or province of Canada without a reciprocity agreement with a state allowing a Maine citizen to hunt without a guide. The department encourages non-residents to hire Maine guides for a safe and enjoyable hunting experience in Maine, but finds the language in LD 309 challenging in terms of the administrative burden to the agency and enforcement issues if passed. The department would be required to maintain agreements with other states or provinces to ensure that we were consistent in our standards regarding hiring a guide for big game hunting. This will create additional staff time and administrative burden. From an enforcement perspective, the bill requires hiring of a guide, but is silent on the presence of a guide during the hunt, which would make it more challenging for our enforcement officers. A similar law was passed in 2007 that required alien hunters, those hunters who were from another country, to hire a guide in order to hunt moose, deer, or bear in Maine if the province or country they lived in required the same. The department testified neither for nor against, suggesting that it was a policy decision related to a reciprocal agreement between Maine and other jurisdictions that the legislature would need to make. In 2009, a bill was introduced to repeal this requirement, and the department supported the repeal. However, the bill was amended by adding some exceptions to the current law instead. The exception was to allow alien hunters to hunt without a guide for big game and turkey if they owned or leased land in Maine, paid their taxes, and sought written authorization from the department. This gave them and their family, which was specifically defined in the section, the exemption from the requirement of a guide. In 2012, then Senator Paul Davis put in a bill to repeal this law. The department testified in support, citing that there had been a negative fiscal impact due to decreased alien license sales of approximately $38,000 each year. Repealing the law would renew alien license sales, be a positive impact to the economy, particularly in rural Maine, and simplify the hunting laws for all non-residents. While a non-resident license now covers hunters from other countries, this proposed bill is more expansive than the law passed in 2007. It includes all non-residents coming from a state or country that requires a guide to be hired to hunt big game. This means that the fiscal impact could be larger than occurred with the previous law that was in place. In addition to all these reasons stated, the department does not want to create barriers for non-resident hunters to come to Maine and hunt. We recognize that many non-residents have homes, camps, and property here and are very familiar and comfortable with hunting and would not want to hire a guide. During the pandemic, IFW made an extra effort to communicate with non-resident hunters and anglers, encouraging them to come to Maine as a new outdoor destination and employ a Maine guide for a quality experience. This was done in conjunction with the Department of Tourism to enhance their webpage to assist hunters and anglers in finding a licensed guide. We appreciate the bill's effort to promote Maine guides, but find the implementation challenging. Be glad to take any questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right. Seeing none. Next, I have Don Kleiner against.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry. I'm Don Kleiner, representing the Maine Professional Guides Association. And like Senator Jackson, I have a long history with this particular legislation as well, and I believe it goes back to the early 1990s. Yes, I am that old. It's hard to imagine. I won't read my testimony, but primarily, We feel that identifying folks and discouraging them or making it more difficult to come to Maine to hunt or fish is simply counterproductive. The efforts of the department and the Maine Office of Tourism in the last year, actually a little longer than that, have been something that I personally have dreamed of most of my career. We are doing better. And I don't want to do anything to discourage that uptick. We also believe that the regulations, as Mr. Peabody identified, are problematic here. What do you do? And I didn't, as I read the bill, I did not understand Senator Jackson's intent. But my example would be in Alaska, I am in fact required to have a guide for coastal grizzly bear. Frankly, I would want one, having been there. But not required to have a guide for an inland black bear hunt. So how do we sort that out? And then finally, the issue is with the department having to have reciprocity agreements, not only with 50 states, but every country around the world. I have guided bird hunters from France and Britain. I don't even know what the requirements for guides are in those countries. How are we going to be able to operate small businesses with that sort of regulatory uncertainty and the time it would take the department to sort those issues out on some kind of a grand scale is simply problematic, particularly now. I mean, none of us is expecting this economy to spring back in the next year or so. So that would be one more issue piled on top. With that, I'll stop and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go on to John Simoneau.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I'm John Simoneau, a resident of Durham and a chapter board member of the New England chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers seeks to ensure North America's outdoor heritage of hunting and fishing in a natural setting by supporting land conservation, public access, hunting and fishing, and sound management of fish and wildlife and their habitats. On behalf of BHA's members in Maine, we urge you to reject LD 309. We value the public trust system of management of fish and game species as a resource for all. Maine's abundant hunting opportunities draws thousands of non-resident hunters each year, bolstering local economies and providing much needed funding for conservation and wildlife management. The North American model of wildlife conservation includes the tenet that democracy of hunting is standard. We believe that all sportsmen and women, regardless of financial means, should enjoy the same opportunities to hunt in Maine. Many members of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers make do-it-yourself trips to Maine and elsewhere across North America. Cases where non-residents are required to hire guides are limited to hunting in fragile wilderness areas in Wyoming, hunting for brown bear, grizzly bear, Dall sheep, mountain goat in Alaska, and hunting big game in some Canadian provinces. However, we do not think that is a reason to adopt these standards for Maine. Even in some of these locations that require guides and outfitters, there are exemptions for kin of Alaskan residents or for residents of an out-of-state residents to bring out-of-state family and friends into the Wyoming designated fragile wilderness areas. I am personally a fourth-generation caretaker of my family camp. This is the gathering place for my family, including siblings whose lives have taken them from Maine. Like many camp owners, I host an annual hunting camp week during deer season and welcome family and friends from in and out of state into my camp. It is hard to miss the out-of-state trucks stocking up on supplies in gateway towns before heading to the North Woods. If you look closer, you'll note that nearly every small town in Maine has an influx of hunters who came home to Maine to hunt with family and friends. You see them picking up coffee and breakfast sandwiches in the morning. You see them gassing up midweek. You see them picking up a stack of pizzas in the evening. You see their names on the posters at the local tagging station. This is a Maine tradition that should be preserved for the future of our hunting heritage and because of the revenue it provides the agency. It should be preserved because it provides much needed economic impact in small towns all over Maine after the summer visitors are long gone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Again, thank you. We'll move on to David Trahan, neither for nor against. Can't hear you or see you, David. See your name, but I don't, that's it.
Let's try that.
All right.
Sorry
See you
about
now.
that.
See you. Yep, no problem.
Yeah. Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. My name is David Trahan. I'm representing the Sportsmen's Alliance Maine Institute for Legislative Action, testifying neither for nor against LD 309. Many of the reasons that we testify neither for nor against have already been stated. I do want to just bring one point, which I think is very important for the committee. It is my belief, having looked at the other states that require a guide, the reason that the states did that was that the hunt in question, whether elk or sheep, grizzly, is a potentially dangerous hunting activity in very remote areas that are dangerous to enter. So it's understandable that these states would want to require a guide in case of injury. The state has a great liability dealing with the consequences of a hunt that isn't done responsibly. So we understand why those states might have that requirement. We are not going to weigh in on the politics of Canadians coming over the border and hunting and vice versa. But our organization does want to focus on why these states may have that policy. Our concerns were that, as well as on first blush, first read of the bill, it looked like the department may have to have reciprocity agreements with every state and in other provinces in Canada. We didn't want them to have to do a tremendous amount of work. So with that, I guess I'll stop my testimony there.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Trahan? Seeing none. Again, thank you. I have no one else on my list. Linda, do you have anyone that is?
No, not that,
Nope.
that I have on my list, Senator.
Okay, great. Thank you. Representative Landry, are you able to speak to us now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Very good, thank you.
Yep. All right, then we will close the hearing on LD 309 and open it up on LD 294, an act to simplify the anti-deer permit distribution system by including the ability to purchase additional permits. And the sponsor is Representative Landry.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Hopefully implementing it is more simple than the title. Good morning, I'm Scott Landry. I represent District 113, the towns of Farmington and New Sharon. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce LD 294, an act to simplify the any deer permit distribution system by including the ability to purchase additional permits. This was a bill that had been suggested to me by a couple of my constituents, and I think it's a good idea. As it stands now, the efficiency of the antlerless deer permit system is questionable. The bill is not intended to eliminate the current system, but to open a discussion on options to achieve the intent of the management goals by allowing hunters to purchase a permit and harvest an additional deer in designated wildlife management districts. As it is now, I have 3 grandchildren, 2, 6, and 8, who have doe tags. Odds of them filling those doe tags are pretty slim. I don't see how we can manage the numbers without making some changes. A hunter that purchases an additional tag, say for 20 or 25 bucks, is more likely to fill that tag. He wants to put some meat in the freezer. That hunter would still be able to hunt for that big buck, and it would also bring additional income to the department. Thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to try to answer questions. I really think that this is just opening up the whole discussion, as we have 2 or 3 other bills that come into this purview. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you. Next up. Yep. Say something, Representative? Nope. Oh, sorry. Representative Epler.
Sorry, the buttons weren't where they usually are. So, Representative Landry, something just caught me, and this has to do with, people not being that familiar with this, but 2-year-olds can hunt?
They can have a doe tag.
Okay. I just learned something.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Next up on 294 is Nate Webb for the department, followed by Eric Venturini and David Trahan. So with that, go ahead, Nate, wherever there you are. Okay.
I'm here. You hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee.
It is a little echoey, just so you know, but that's okay. It's just, I don't know if there's anything to do about that, but you vary reverberations for some reason.
Okay, I can switch to my earbuds if that's helpful. Take me just a second. Okay. Okay, is that any better?
Yeah, it's better.
Yes.
Great, okay. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I am Nate Webb, Wildlife Division Director of the department, speaking on behalf of the department, neither for nor against LD 294. This bill allows the Commissioner of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife to offer for direct purchase antlerless deer permits in certain wildlife management districts as the Commissioner finds necessary based on deer populations and deer health. We appreciate the intent of this bill and that it broadens the Commissioner's authority to regulate the harvests of antlerless deer by directly selling antlerless deer permits without prescribing if or when this approach must be used. This would create additional flexibility for the department to meet deer population goals. While we expect that charging a fee for antlerless deer permits might reduce the number of interested hunters and increase the utilization rate of permits, in most WMDs, there would still need to be a limit on the number of available permits. In this scenario, permits would likely be issued on a first-come, first-served basis, which may create concerns over equity and fairness by those interested in acquiring a permit. Therefore, if this bill were to pass and a department began using this tool, we would likely do so in WMDs where the availability of antlerless deer hunting opportunity exceeds demand. The current antlerless deer permit system is extremely complex. Specified percentages are allocated to junior hunters, landowners, and non-residents. There is no cost to apply for or receive a permit, and swaps and transfers are commonplace. We are aware that some hunters apply for antlerless permits with the express intent of transferring it to another hunter. With no minimum age to apply, it is perfectly legal for young, non-hunting children to acquire a permit and then transfer it to an adult. Some hunters acquire a permit only to sell it to another hunter for profit, and there are currently no limits on the number of bonus antlerless permits that a hunter can hold. As you know, there have been several bills submitted this session that would adjust the framework for issuing antlerless deer permits. These bills address a variety of aspects of the current system, including altering the distribution of permits to favor certain user groups, allowing either sex deer hunting without a permit, and authorizing the direct sale of permits. Rather than move forward with changes to the antlerless deer permit system at this time, we request that the committee authorize the department to work with stakeholders to review the current antlerless deer permit system and develop recommendations to ensure it meets three primary goals: allowing for effective management of the deer population, ensuring an equitable distribution of hunting opportunity, and minimizing administrative complexity and costs. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Other questions? Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate, question to Nate. Nate, I'm not sure I understand what you mean when you say you would like more time? Are you suggesting that you'd like to study this in lieu of a statute?
I think what we're asking is, as I mentioned, there are a number of bills that would make various adjustments to the way in which antlerless deer hunting opportunities are allocated. And rather than moving forward with any one of those bills, what we're requesting is that the department is given the time to work with stakeholders to come back to the committee with a comprehensive suite of recommendations to address the various concerns with the current system.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, I don't see Eric Venturini. Linda, no?
No, he was here initially, but I don't see him in the attendees list at this time.
Then we'll move on to David Trahan.
Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the committee. Again, my name is David Trahan, representing the SAM ILA, testifying neither for nor against on this bill. You've heard the same line from me on several other bills. In the same line of or train of thought as the department, we would like to see a more comprehensive look at the NED permit system before we can support any single policy. We have at our disposal one of the most informed deer biologists in our state, Jerry Levine, who I've already asked to engage and be part of a discussion to review this system. He was around when it was developed on day one and seen the transition to what it is today. And I think he could be a good representative from our organization to participate in discussions. With that, I hope that the committee recognizes that our number one goal as conservationists is to maintain a safe and healthy population for the general public, to view, to hunt, and to enjoy the whitetail deer resource. All of these bills, to some degree, have watered down our NED permit system, and I think it's really time to regroup and figure out how it's fair and safe for everyone involved. With that, I'll stop my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dave? All right, seeing none, thank you. And I see we have Eric back. So with that, Eric, if you want to unmute yourself, we'll start. Go ahead.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and esteemed members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Eric Venturini, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wild Blueberry Commission of Maine, the voice of Maine's wild blueberry farms and businesses. Maine's wild blueberry farmers grow approximately 10% of all blueberries produced in our nation, and nearly 100% of wild blueberries grown in the US. Here in Maine, we have about 485 farmers growing and harvesting blueberries on 38,000 acres across the state, but primarily in Washington and other coastal counties. Over the past 5 years, we have on average grown 70.5 million pounds of Maine wild blueberries annually. Wild blueberries are truly wild. Our berries are grown on fields ranging from just a few acres in Maine up to contiguous swaths, of thousands of acres in the heart of the Down East region. And grown where they have existed naturally for thousands of years. These fields are not fenced in. They're open to wildlife, including bear, turkey, deer, grouse, and more. Unfortunately, as deer populations in our coastal regions have grown, so has the consumption of tender blueberry buds by deer. Those same buds, if not grazed by deer, would flower and fruit. Heavy grazing by deer in areas of the state where deer populations are too high is costing Maine's iconic wild blueberry farmers time and money that they cannot afford. Deer herbivory is making it even harder for those businesses to remain in business and to continue to be a vital economic engine in some of the most impoverished counties in the state. Farmers already coordinate with hunters and with the department in search of solutions, but reducing the deer herd around blueberry growing regions requires a more scaled strategy, such as this bill represents. This bill would give the Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife the ability to manage deer populations at a finer resolution than they currently are able. Where deer are overpopulated and problematic, The department can help to reduce the herd size by selling more antlerless permits. Where deer are underpopulated or do not pose a human-wildlife conflict, the department can reduce the number of antlerless permits they sell. This bill gives the department greater control over the state's deer population. And on behalf of Maine's wild blueberry farmers and businesses, I urge you to support it. Thank you for your time and your consideration this morning. I would take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Eric. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Again, thank you. Is there anyone else, Linda, on this bill to testify?
Not on my list, Senator.
Okay. Then with that, I will close the hearing on LD 294. And we will open up the hearing on 349. An act to prohibit the use of personal watercraft on Keys Pond in the town of Sweden. Representative Millet. Is he here at the moment? I see some heads shaking yes.
Yes, I just moved him in. There he is.
There he is. Okay. Good morning, Representative Millet.
Good morning, and thank you, Senator. Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I am Soen Millet. I represent House District 71, which includes the citizens of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris. I'm pleased this morning to present LD 349, which seeks to prohibit the use of personal watercraft on Keys Pond in the town of Sweden. This bill would make Keys Pond the 34th body of water on which such bodies where the operation of personal watercraft is prohibited by statute. Keys Pond covers about 190 acres, and much of that area is very shallow in water depth. It is popular for fishermen, kayakers, paddleboarders, and distance swimmers. There are only 40 lake front lots on Keys Pond, the largest of which is Camp Tapawingo, a summer camp for girls that has been operating there for over 100 years. I am told that no one has ever used a personal watercraft on Keys Pond, and people in the area have just assumed that they were already prohibited. In summary, I believe the use of personal watercraft would be incompatible with the traditional uses of Keys Pond, and I ask for your support on this legislation. There will be several others testifying in support of LD 349 this morning who are much more familiar with the environment in and around Keys Pond than I am, but I will be happy to respond to any questions that you may have of me. And I thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Again, thank you, Representative Millet.
Thank you.
Next up is Colonel Dan Scott for the department, followed by Andrew Black and Stacy Kiefer.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the IFW Committee. I am Dan Scott, Colonel of the Maine Warden Service, and speaking on behalf of the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, neither for nor against LD 349. This bill adds Keys Pond in the town of Sweden in Oxford County to the list of water bodies in the state on which the operation of personal watercraft is prohibited. As the representative mentioned, Keys Pond is approximately a mile long and a third of a mile wide and encompasses approximately 190 acres. A check of our records management system revealed no complaints regarding relating to personal watercraft operation or misuse on Keys Pond. In 2013, one of our wardens documented an informational request where someone was inquiring if there were motorboat restrictions on the pond. In 2019, the local warden, Warden Tim Coombs, attended a Keys Lake Association meeting, and no issues around personal watercraft operation were brought to his attention at that meeting. Warden Coombs indicates that the Lake Association acknowledges kind of a self-imposed 10 horsepower restriction on the pond, which results in few larger motorized watercraft being operated on the water body. At one point in the last year, Warden Coombs did receive a complaint of a boat over 10 horsepower being operated on the pond, and he informed the complainant that there was no such prohibition. Camp Tapawingo on the western shore does support summer camp activities which employ the use of a ski boat. Title 12, Section 13071-A lists a series of water bodies which prohibit the use of personal watercraft. There are currently 33 of them. Additionally, Rule Chapter 10 of the Maine Land Use Planning Commission lists an additional water bodies which prohibit the use of personal watercraft. There are approximately 270 of them. And just for a little bit of legislative history for the committee to consider as they move forward with this bill, in 1999, LD 2346 was enacted, which provided a legislative process for prohibiting the personal watercraft on the 33 bodies of water which are prohibited by Title 12. The LD essentially allowed for a municipality or municipalities to petition the commissioner to restrict the operation and types of watercraft on great ponds within the municipality. If a municipality chose to prepare recommendations for such waters, it had to take into consideration the use to which those waters are put, the depth of the water, the amount of waterborne traffic on the water, wildlife and environmental values, noise, traditional uses, and the safety of persons and property. These recommendations were then submitted after a public hearing and must include, these recommendations must be submitted only after a public hearing and must include a description of the resources the municipality will use to enforce or assist the enforcement of those regulations. For any municipality whose legislative body is a town meeting, the recommendations may only be considered and approved during the annual town meeting. The commissioner was then directed to submit a report from the municipalities to the legislature for legislative approval. So that's just a little bit of history on how the 33 water bodies that are currently in Title 12 and prohibit the use of personal watercraft, how that came about in the very late 90s and early 2000s. I would be glad to answer any questions at this time or during the work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Lyford. You're muted, Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Colonel, if this bill was to pass, would the girls' camp be not allowed to use a watercraft?
The way the bill is currently written, it speaks to personal watercraft, jet skis, so to speak. As written, if it passed, that particular camp would not be able to. I'll also mention, just in my research, just as that point of notice, their website didn't speak to personal watercrafts, mostly just a ski boat that they typically use for some of their activities.
But that would be prohibited if the bill passed.
No, this is specific to personal watercraft.
Personal watercraft. Good.
Yep, personal watercraft.
Thank you.
Ride on jet ski type complaints.
Thank you.
Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Colonel. Question, through the APA and the rulemaking process, does the commissioner have the authority to hold a public hearing on this and make a determination?
The commissioner's rulemaking authority is on horsepower restrictions, which if you restrict a horsepower, that involves all watercraft, motorboats, personal watercraft, anything, any engine. This is specific towards personal watercraft, which are defined in Title 12. I don't have it right in front of me, but you ride on jet ski type watercraft, and those are guided by statute. They're maintained under the legislative purview of whether to restrict them or not. That's why I brought up that statutory language from the late 90s. During that time, the legislature chose to hold on to the authority to regulate personal watercraft in areas of the state, whereas it gave the authority to regulate general horsepower restrictions to the commissioner.
Thank you.
Representative Terrio.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Thank you for being here today, Colonel. So as far as you know, they have not gone through any process to try and get this done the way they're supposed to. They're just coming straight to us.
Not that I'm aware of. I can't speak to that either way.
Okay, so you don't know if they've gone through the process of the meeting and all that within the town so that they can do it right?
It's my understanding that bill was passed in, that was a specific LD regarding that group of bills that all those lakes and ponds came up at one time. It was, I think, in response to the Great Ponds Task Force. And I think that process was specific to that time period when all of those different lakes and ponds came up. We just brought that to your attention to show you that that's how that was done in the past.
Yeah, but isn't that the way they have to do it in the future also? We've dealt with this a couple of years ago, and that was what they had to do, is they have to go through that town meeting process and then bring it to the legislature after that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I'd have to research that and bring it back to you during the work session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Representative Landry.
My question was pretty much the same as Representative Terrio's. If there's something on the books that it has to come from the town to us, then that's the way it should happen, I feel.
Yeah, hopefully that didn't confuse the situation. We can bring that up at work session. My point of bringing that up was, I think there's just been one time in the past where water bodies were restricted to personal watercraft use. And that was in that time frame of 99, 2000. All 33 of those water bodies were brought forth at once, or over a course of a couple of years, and they all went through and all were restricted. I don't think that we have had a water body added to that successfully since that time, at least in the non-LUPC designated zones. Again, that was just to highlight how this process was brought up in the past. We can do some research to see if that process would still be required today.
That would be good. Thank you.
Representative Ordway.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Yeah, I would echo those comments that I would like to see something from the town of Sweden. The town of Sweden had an opportunity to do this when that original LD came up. And I would like to see something from the town of Sweden. I know there's area towns that back when that first LD came out that joined in and restricted their ponds and lakes, and Sweden had an opportunity to do so and didn't. And I'd like to know the reasons for that.
So you'd like that for the work session, Representative Ordway? Is that your question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, during the work session, it would be great to know if Sweden has, through legislation, attempted to do this in the past.
Okay. Thank you. Are there other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Colonel Scott. We'll move on to Andrew Black.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and other members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Andrew Black, and I am a resident of Cumberland, Maine. I'm no longer a permanent resident of Sweden, Maine, but I still own a camp on Kais Pond, and I spend as much time there as possible. There's sometimes confusion about the spelling and pronunciation of it, but those from Sweden spell it K-E-Y-E-S and pronounce it Kais. I'm speaking in favor of LD 349 because I believe that Kais Pond is precisely the type of pond that should be added to the list of Maine lakes where the operation of personal watercraft is prohibited. Please note, like Colonel Scott indicated, that the term personal watercraft is the legal term for jet skis and similar motorized watercraft that have inboard motors that power jet pumps. It does not include traditional motorboats or any non-motorized watercraft. Attached to my written testimony is a table of the actual 57 lakes for which the legislature has already prohibited the use of jet skis. It's 57, even though there's only 33 sections, because some of those sections prohibit the use on multiple lakes. The table includes the locations, sizes in acres, and maximum depth in feet of those 57 lakes. Also attached is the department's lake survey map for Kais Pond. You can see from this list that these lakes are located throughout Maine and vary in size from a few acres to over 5,000 acres. It should also be noted that the department has adopted rules that either prohibit all motorized watercraft or substantially limit the size of motors on another 84 lakes that effectively prohibit the use of jet skis on those 84 lakes. Colonel Scott indicated it might be a higher number. I'll defer to him on that. But therefore, there are currently at least 141 lakes in Maine on which jet skis are prohibited by law. Kai's Pond is a 192-acre pond with a maximum depth of 42 feet, which places it near the median of these other lakes in these measures. There is relatively little development on the pond, and it has a thriving cold water fishery. Each fall, the department stocks the pond with brook trout. And each spring, fishermen land some sizable trout. James Pellerin, a state biologist with the department, has told me that Kai's Pond is one of the finest brook trout fisheries in his region. Every summer, a wide array of people come to Kai's Pond and enjoy it in a variety of ways. There are many canoeists, kayakers, paddleboarders, and fishermen who all have to comply with the voluntary limit of 5 horsepower engines. The result is a very quiet and peaceful lake where fish and wildlife thrive. Despite its small size, every year as far back as anyone can recall, there has been at least one nesting pair of loons and sometimes 2 breeding pairs. Each year, at least one chick has survived through the fall. It has also become a destination for those who enjoy distance swimming on a lake. As far as my informal but extensive research has shown, no one has ever attempted to operate a jet ski on Kai's Pond. In fact, most people I spoke with assumed that they were prohibited. The possibility that someone may someday desire to operate a jet ski on the lake is concerning, because it would be highly disruptive to the way this pond has traditionally been used and detrimental to the fish and wildlife that live in and around it. This bill is a result of that concern. It is simply a proactive effort to formally put in place a law that will preserve the status quo and help ensure that the public can continue to use Kai's Pond in the many ways that it has traditionally done. I will just attempt to, if you give me a second, to address some of the questions that came up with regard to the involvement of the town. It's my understanding that back in 1999, there was an opportunity for all towns throughout the state of Maine to put on a list lakes in their area that they desired to have put on this prohibition list. Many towns did that, many did not. Sweden, I can't tell you what the reason was. I don't know if the issue was even brought up to the town at the time. But they didn't participate in that process. As a result of that, the way to, the legislature is the only body that can prohibit jet skis, it's themselves specifically, without prohibiting other watercraft. That's why that is going the legislative process as opposed to the rulemaking process. If it went the rulemaking process through the agency could, they could address horsepower, but they could not specifically address jet skis. So in other words, if they prohibited, let's say over 50 horsepower or something, that would prohibit motorboats as well. This legislation would not prohibit the use of motorboats of any size on the lake. And there was reference to Cap Campo Wingo. You'll see from some of the testimony, the written testimony that was submitted by the Kai's Pond Environmental Protection Association, that indeed Tapawingo is in favor of this legislation because they don't want jet skis on the lake either. And as I indicated, there's no indication that anyone has ever used one or has intended to use one, but we thought this would be the proactive way to take care of a problem before the issue arose. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Stacy Kiefer.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. My name is Stacy Kiefer, and I'm presenting this testimony in my capacity as the Director for the Maine Marine Trades Association. Our association represents over 120 Maine businesses in an industry comprised of boatyards, boat builders, marinas, boat dealers, retailers, and service providers. So that would include recreational and commercial boats, plus any dealers who sell and service personal watercraft. According to the National Marine Manufacturers Association, our industry collectively has an approximate $2.9 billion economic impact in Maine, and that's data for 2018. On behalf of our members, I would like to extend concern. I guess we could say we're neither for nor against, or against as worded, for this bill that aims to prohibit a certain type of watercraft on Kai's Pond. We understand the Maine statute allows for this type of ban. However, it'd be preferable to see a true horsepower limitation. Apparently, according to other testimony, it's sort of an informal, unspoken, or unofficial horsepower limitation on that pond. Either a wake zone, noise, or speed limitation put into place. Unless there's a specific safety issue with personal watercraft on this pond, there is a possibility that people who operate these types of watercraft can do so within desired limitations of the residents and other pond users. Oppositely, owners of other types of motorized watercraft could potentially operate their vessels in some undesirable fashion as well. So our association hopes the residents and boaters can find a respectful balance. We urge the town of Sweden to set an operational or work toward operational ordinances rather than completely banning this specific type of watercraft on the pond. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? All right, seeing none. Again, thank you. Linda, that's all I have on my list for 349. Is that correct?
That's all I have as well.
All right, thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Representative Landry to run the next two public hearings. With that, Representative Landry.
Thank you, Senator Dill. We'll move on to LD 356, an act to increase opportunities for seniors and persons with disabilities to participate in moose hunting. This is going to be presented by Representative Alley of Beals. Representative Alley, you're muted. We still can't hear you.
Should be the microphone in the lower left corner.
Yes, hi, this is David.
Representative Alley.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we've got you. We're going to train you on that thing one of these days.
She's tried. She has tried, but I've got it right here.
Well, good. Go ahead.
There. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and fellow members of the Inland Fish and Wildlife Committee. I am Representative Robert Alley, and I represent 11 communities in Washington County. I am here today to introduce LD 356, an act to increase opportunities for seniors and persons with disabilities to participate in the moose hunt. I put this bill in because I feel that older Mainers and those with disabilities, particularly those who have never hunted moose before, should have an advantage when it comes to participating in moose hunting. The critical part of this is the rulemaking around how this would operate in its practice. I don't advocate for all of those over 70 with disabilities to instantly qualify for a moose permit. I propose that we give the department broad leeway in how they limit the number of licenses made available to these groups. Inland fisheries can limit the permits, however, they they like, but I propose the following. The applications for the special permit meet all of the other conditions for the moose lottery. That it's been limited to Maine residents only. That the department pick a number of permits to dictate to the group. The permits be non-transferable, and that the permits be limited to those who have never hunted moose before all these people have been given preference. The permits may be made available on a first come, first service base. Those are just my suggestions. However, as I said, the department can set this up however they feel most fair and within the limitations of the herd for a given year. I want to see the people who are older or disabled that have never had an opportunity to take part in this wonderful Maine experience. If you think that even this is too much, then I hope you would consider using the bill as a vehicle to create a sort of a make-a-wish opportunity for those Maine residents who are very sick, either with age, cancer, or other incurable problems, that have never been moose hunting and would really like to before they die. The department could set up the very small pool of permits, maybe 5 or 6, for the people who fall into this category. And I thank you. And I will answer any questions I can.
Thank you very much, Representative Alley. Since there are no other, I see no co-sponsors, are there any other legislators who would like to speak to the issue? Anybody have any questions for Representative Alley? Hearing none, can we hear from the department? Who's Nate, are you going to speak for the department?
I am. Yes, thank you, Representative Landry.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Nate Webb, Wildlife Division Director, speaking on behalf of the department in opposition to LD 356. This bill allows a resident 70 years of age or older and persons with a disability to apply for and receive a moose hunting permit without going through the public chance drawing. While we appreciate the intent of this bill as currently written, we believe it would have significant negative impacts on Maine's moose population and on moose hunting and viewing opportunities. Each year, the department issues moose permits within a range that will meet publicly derived goals for the moose population. Permit numbers are set in rule and are based on a variety of scientific information, including helicopter surveys, data collected from harvested moose, and research on moose conducted here in Maine. Over the past several years, permits have varied between approximately 2,000 and 4,000 each year. Permits are issued through a random lottery with a small percentage going directly to hunting lodges. About 60,000 prospective hunters apply for a permit each year, with some hunters waiting decades for an opportunity to hunt. If this bill were to pass as written, there are approximately 40,000 licensed hunters aged 70 or older that would be eligible to receive a moose permit every year. Each of these hunters would be able to designate a sub-permittee, so we expect that interest in taking advantage of this opportunity would be high, even among those that have not traditionally applied in the lottery. In addition, we expect that some non-hunters would request a permit in order to offer the sub-permittee designation to a friend or family member. Moose permit numbers would essentially be limited only by the number of eligible Maine residents aged 70 or older, which greatly exceeds our current annual permit allocations. Therefore, the department would not be able to issue moose permits to other interested hunters, and we expect that the hunting pressure would be unsustainable and could lead to dramatic moose population declines. Currently, a moose permit is automatically awarded to any resident who is 65 years of age or older, or will attain 65 years of age during the calendar year in which the resident is applying for the permit, and who has accumulated at least 30 points in the lottery. This provision was established by the legislature to reward older hunters with a long history of applying in the lottery. There are approximately 60 hunters that meet these criteria each year. We believe this current system strikes a good balance between allowing the department to set permit numbers at appropriate levels while ensuring that hunters with a long history in pursuing moose are awarded a permit. As written, this bill would also create considerable administrative burden for the department. We do want to remind the committee that in 2019, a law was created to allow a moose permit recipient to transfer their permit to a disabled veteran via a process established between IFW and Veterans Affairs. And I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Thank you very much, Nate. Any questions for Nate? The only one we see in line next would be David Trahan.
You got Tim Terrio wants to ask a question, Representative Landry.
Oh, I'm sorry, missed him with that blue background.
Hey, Nate. Do we have any Make-A-Wish group available for moose hunting? I don't know that we do have that. I heard him mention that.
I'm not aware that we do. I can double check that for the work session, but I'm not aware that we do have a system like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Nate? Seeing none, David Trahan.
Yes, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the committee. Again, David Trahan representing the Institute for Legislative Action, Sportsmen's Alliance, Maine. I'm not going to reiterate or repeat what Nate Webb said in his testimony, but the same concerns they had with the scope of individuals that would be eligible for a permit in this bill would have been in the tens of thousands and would have basically made no moose permits available to anyone else except this group. We would have to oppose the bill in its current form. So without repeating what Nate said, thank you for an opportunity to speak in opposition to the bill as written.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anybody else? Representative Alley?
Yes, sir. I'm just curious. I believe I put on there 5 or 6 moose in that, on the end of it there, on that Make-A-Wish. I didn't realize that would break the bank in the state of Maine, but so be it.
Can I address that?
Certainly.
When I testified, Representative Alley, I spoke to the original bill, and that original bill is what we had to look at online and had no opportunity or any knowledge of any amendment you were presenting. So please don't take that as a criticism to your amendment. We were speaking directly to the bill. And as far as the a possible amendment, certainly we would entertain, as we do any possible amendments in any discussion on amending a bill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other discussion on 356? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing on LD 356 and move on to LD 361. An act to establish a permanent appointment of a member of the Wabanaki tribes to the Inland Fishery and Wildlife Advisory Council, presented by Representative Newell of the Passamaquoddy. Is she here, Linda?
She is. I just let her in. She's down at the bottom of my screen anyway.
Oh, I don't see her either.
She's here.
Oh, there she is.
Unmute, please, Representative Newell.
Good morning.
Good morning, Representative Newell.
How are you?
Good.
Good morning, Representative Landry, excuse me. Senator Dill and other distinguished members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I am Tribal Representative Rena Newell from the Passamaquoddy Tribe at Pleasant Point. As the tribal representative of the Passamaquoddy Tribe, I feel it is my duty within my role to foster positive tribal-state relations and encourage the tribe's right to self-determination. Related to the tribe's right to self-determination is the right to participate in the larger governing structure. As Indigenous peoples have a right to maintain and develop their own Indigenous decision-making institutions, they also have the right to participate in decision-making in matters which would affect their rights through representatives chosen by themselves in accordance with their own procedure. By fostering the active participation of Indigenous people, the expectation is that their rights will be protected and their culture and physical survival ensured. The Wabanaki Tribes of Maine enjoy and exercise their right to participate in public affairs. As written by Nicole Fredericks. Therefore, I am thankful for the opportunity to present in a good way for this committee's consideration, LD 361, an act to establish a permanent Wabanaki appointment to the Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Advisory Council. What this bill seeks to do is amend the composition of the IFW Advisory Council. The Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Advisory Council, established by Title V, Section 12,004G, subsection 20, and currently consists of 10 members representing the 16 counties of the state. This bill would introduce an 11th member, being a member of the Wabanaki tribes. With the understanding relating to process that the governor shall appoint the member who is a member of the Wabanaki tribes based on the recommendation of the tribal governments, which would include the Aroostook Band of Maliseets, which would include the Aroostook Band of Micmacs, the Holton Band of Maliseet Indians, the Passamaquoddy tribe at Indian Township, the Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point, and the Penobscot Nation. In recommending the appointment of the tribal member, the tribal governments of the Wabanaki tribes shall establish a process that provides for the membership to rotate among the tribal governments with the understanding that appointments are for a term of 3 years and until successors are appointed and qualified. This proposed bill, as well as others that I have submitted this legislative session, seeks to memorialize a space, thus giving deserving recognition to Wabanaki representation and perspective within the state of Maine's boards and commissions. The opportunity to hold a seat on the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Advisory Council is an important one. It provides an opportunity to receive valuable input from a tribal representative from the above-mentioned tribes, thus providing a voice from a Wabanaki cultural perspective in the areas of fishing, hunting, trapping, land management, conservation, and enforcement. I am certain that a Wabanaki representative shall fulfill the role and duties of a IFW Advisory Council member well and with honor. Well, one can seemingly expect through tribal state relations that issues of mutual interest would be addressed from a government to government basis. I think it is safe to say through an historic lens that the perceived limitations set upon the tribes from the state through rules, regulations, and its Blue Book laws that have since been repealed prior to the 1980 Land Claim Settlement Act and through additional laws set forth in the Maine Implementing Act would suggest a lack of reciprocity in trust and, more importantly, dialogue. Thus, in the absence, the participating IFW Advisory Council seat that would be held by a Wabanaki representative is one step towards a greater good for all and can only lead to improvement upon the flow of information between the state and the tribes to the matters of importance and mutual interest. In closing, I humbly call upon each of you to give consideration to the continuance in elevating the standard to improving tribal-state relations by raising your voice to support LD 361. I believe collectively we can make the difference and change the narrative for future generations by working together on this shared land. I'll be happy to answer any questions that members of the committee may have at this time. Should I be unable to answer, I would then ask that an opportunity to present a response be provided for during the work session. Respectfully presented, Willie One. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Newell, for your testimony and your bill. Is there anyone who has any questions for the representative? Yes, Representative Hepler.
Representative Newell, I don't know whether you know the answer to this, but has there ever been a Wabanaki representative on any of these advisory boards, councils before? I think it's high time, frankly, but.
Thank you for the question, Representative Hepler. However, I didn't fully hear the entire question. I apologize.
I was just, can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna.
Is that better? Is that better?
It is now.
Okay. I hate headphones. I was just curious as to if you know if Wabanaki members have been on these advisory councils in the past.
Okay. I appreciate the question, and let me just refer to the 129th session where there were recent appointments made. As you may be aware, there was an appointment specifically to the Maine Criminal Justice Board of Trustees, which we have recently appointed Matthew Dana, the former tribal representative, to serve on that seat. In addition to the Board of Trustees seat, during 129th as well, I'm just flipping through my file here, sorry. In the establishment of the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Maine Tribal Populations, there are additional seats there for Wabanaki representatives. And let me see. During the beginning of the 129th, there was a bill submitted regarding the membership of the Wild Blueberry Commission of Maine, I believe sponsored by Representative Alley. Although that proposal, that bill called for a specific Wabanaki tribal representative to serve on the Wild Blueberry Commission, we weren't granted the specific seat. However, we were granted, I believe, in the status of a grower. And so now we do have our manager of our Passamaquoddy Wild Blueberry Company sitting on the Wild Blueberry Commission. In addition, during the 129th, LD 870, an act to change the membership of the Maine Commission on Domestic and Sexual Abuse to include more tribal members, has offered, I believe, 4 additional seats for tribal representatives. Representative Hepler, did I answer your question?
More than completely, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Representative Newell? Seeing none, are there any other co-sponsors who would like to speak to this bill? Again, seeing none, do we have a statement from the commissioner?
Yes, thank you, Representative. Good morning, Senator Deal, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I am Judy Camuso, Commissioner of the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, speaking on behalf of the department in support of LD 361. This bill increases the membership of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Advisory Council by adding a member who represents the Wabanaki tribes. The department is supportive of having an 11th member of the advisory council who is a representative of the Wabanaki tribes. We would ask that that member be required to serve under the same terms and conditions that the other 10 members do. Statute allows a member to serve a maximum of 2 consecutive 3-year terms. We would ask that the tribal governments work in consultation with the commissioner to make a recommendation to the governor for that seat. I'd be glad to answer any questions at this time or during the work session.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Any questions for the commissioner? Seeing none, I see we have a couple of people who want to speak to the bill. In the queue, Molly Ann Dana is next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Representative Landry, Senator Dill. I am Molly Ann Dana. I serve as the Penobscot Nation Tribal Ambassador, and I'm here today to speak in support of LD 361. And I'm not sure that I can offer much more than Representative Newell. She gave just a beautifully articulate background on this issue and why this is so important. And I really want to thank her for her vision and leadership as she puts these bills in to add these really crucial components into these commissions and councils that really seek to advance the healing in the tribal state relationship. And see what the tribes have been kind of perpetually dealing with is every administration, it's unclear if we will get any level of consultation and what that will look like. So the more we can set things in stone and the more that we can bring clarity to a lot of these issues, I think it will really chip away at a lot of the distrust and tension and a lot of this unknown that clouds this relationship at times. When it comes to the IFW issues, I can't think of a more perfect place to really have some tribal input in the state of Maine. The Wabanaki nations, our ancestors have been the stewards of these lands and waters since time immemorial. So a lot of the pristine, beautiful environment that we are so used to in Maine, we really owe it to our ancestors who have instilled these cultural values of sustainability and really caring for the Mother Earth as she was one of us, a community member. So I really feel strongly in support of this, and I would urge you to vote ought to pass. I think it is a really natural connection point for collaboration in a positive way between the tribes in Maine and the state. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Was Don Kleiner going to speak in favor? No, okay, then we'll move on to Don Neptune.
Quay, Willie's Buzzaway, good morning. My name is Dawn Neptune Adams. I am a member of the Penobscot Nation and also a journalist and activist with Sunlight Media Collective. We are a grassroots media collective and grassroots activists who have the purpose of amplifying Indigenous voices. Our focus is usually environmental issues and how those issues intersect with sovereignty and stewardship of the Wabanaki people. I am here today to speak in favor of the bill introduced by Tribal Representative Rena Newell, an act to establish appointment of a member of the Wabanaki tribes to the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Advisory Council. I would like to thank Representative Newell for introducing the bill, and I'd like to thank Ambassador Malian for speaking so eloquently about our responsibility to care for Mother Earth. So I came prepared to give you a whole bunch of stats on the fish in the Penobscot River and how unhealthy they are for us to eat. But I think maybe a personal story might be a little better. I came home from California at the height of the 2008 depression, recession, whatever you want to call it, 2009. And I was pregnant with my only child. And I knew that traditional foods would be best for me and for my child. But I was not able to eat the fish. Later on, when my child was maybe 5 years old, I was in college studying carpentry, and I did not have a lot of money. My cousin would bring us fish that he caught on his lunch break, and they were delicious. But according to Penobscot Nation Natural Resources Department advisories, what I didn't know was that children under 8 were not supposed to eat fish out of the Penobscot River at all. So my child and I have in practicing our culture, in practicing, the traditions of our ancestors, we ate fish that was very toxic. And I think that having a member of the Wabanaki community as an advisor to this council would be good. It is said that you're either at the table or on the menu. And I would prefer that fish and deer and moose and fiddleheads were on the menu and not us. So I would also like to offer some resources for the committee. Sunlight Media Collective has performed many interviews with the people who work at the Penobscot Nation Natural Resources Department. Those interviews can be found at sunlightmediacollective.org or on our Facebook page. I thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today, and cheers. Have a good one. I'm open to any. Well,
Thank you very much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, is there anybody who would like to speak for this bill? Anybody speaking against it? Anyone neither nor for nor against?
That would be me, Representative, if I could.
Well, there you go.
Representative Landry, Senator Dill, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, a couple of issues as a committee of my board meets to discuss legislation that were raised. I don't think that these are non-starter issues, but they are things that you need to consider. And the first one I would raise is that the current advisory council, the advisory council is structured on county lines, and where representatives or where the people of the Wabanaki Nation would be already citizens of counties, will they be double counted in this process? In other words, overrepresented. I don't believe that that's a non-starter. I want to raise that issue as something I'd like you to consider as you move forward carefully. And the other is the relationship with a sovereign nation that is separate from our own, certainly equal. But I would put forward that the Canadians are also a sovereign nation that is equal, and I would be very much opposed to them getting a seat on our advisory council. So some conversation about how that plays out and what that means for us going forward. And I have no immediate concern with that, but I want to raise those issues so that they're discussed before they become important issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kleiner. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on LD 361?
Let's see if there's any questions for Mr. Kleiner first. I do have one, Representative. I completely lost your analogy at the end of, sovereign nations and relating Canada to the Native Americans and the sovereign nations we have. These people are living in the state of Maine. They're trying to subsist from the land. The Canadians are not. So I completely missed that.
So the thing that I need you to understand, or the point I'm trying to make, is the Wabanakis, the Penobscots, and the Passamaquoddies certainly have lands that they control, and they have a fish and wildlife advisory structure similar to our own. I think there is an opportunity here for coordination. I think it already takes place at a pretty high level. But again, so do moose also walk across the Maine Canadian border, and I think we have a cooperative relationship there, but we're different. And I just want cognizance of that issue.
The other question I have, if I may, Chair Landry, when you were speaking of county lines, I, not being that familiar with the makeup of the board or the council, you said that it's broken down somehow by county lines, except there's only 10 representatives. So currently, are there more than one representative from a county on the council?
No, actually, Senator Dill, excellent question. Thank you. There are some of the smaller counties where a representative covers 2, or I think 3. I think my representative is for Waldo, Knox, and Lincoln counties. So that accounts for, I can't remember where the other, there's another one that has 2 counties. Forgive me, I don't remember which 2. But that's how we get to that number 10. There are representatives that cover more than one county.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Kleiner? Anybody else wishing to speak to LD 361? Yes, Representative Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Might I just get the organization that Mr. Kleiner represents? I don't believe I picked that up in his introduction.
And that's my fault. I didn't have him introduce himself.
I'm very sorry. Forgive me. I always do, and I've gotten to the point of not doing it. Don Kleiner, I represent the Maine Professional Guides Association.
Thank you.
Anything else on LD 361? Seeing none, I move we close the hearing on LD 361. Is there anything else, Linda? Oh, Representative Woodway.
Yeah, if we're done with all that, I would just ask if we could get for the work session on 309, if we could get the input from the department on the number of licenses from New Brunswick.
Should be able to handle that. Is there anything else?
I have no one else on the list for this bill or any others.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Representative Mason, and a second? Representative Alley, thank you. Hereby close the hearing, public hearing today on 5 bills. Thank you.